For more on all things electric cars and the future, Dan Ives joins us. He's the Managing Director of Equity Research at Wedbush Securities, focusing on the tech sector. Good to see you, my friend.
Great to be here.
Let's start with electric cars, because this is obviously the future, so there's no debating that. This Inflation Reduction Act is obviously a big win for the industry. What were your key takeaways on how fast that $300+ billion is going to creep back into these manufacturers?
Yeah, look, I view it as a baby step in the right direction. I think that the issue is in terms of some of the component parts on battery. I think there's going to really be a tightrope in terms of who actually qualifies for those in terms of some of the incentives. But look, I view it as a positive step, but clearly there's a lot more wood to chop here, especially within the U.S. That's why you have less than 3% automobiles being EV today.
Right, and speaking of wood to chop, I think California chopped some wood today because this is pretty historic, them essentially banning gas-powered vehicles. And I understand there are some exceptions, but in the year 2035, that's only 12 years away, which is 3 Olympics, and it's going to happen in the blink of an eye. Is this anticipated by all the manufacturers, or are they already moving in that direction?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean, if you look at GM, I mean, clearly they're going there by 2035, Ford, a lot of the other stars. And then you talk about, what's happening even in Germany. I mean, VW, Mercedes, BMW, Audi across the board. And of course, Tesla continues to really dominate the market. But look, it's all going in that direction, but it's the carrot and the stick. And I think you really need to see more regulatory pressure put on toward the EVs, but you need to have more tax incentives and also charging stations, because today there's 100,000 charging stations. You need 500,000 in the U.S. to really get to some of those levels.
Yeah, and look, to play devil's advocate here, just because a car is an electric car doesn't mean it doesn't pollute, because electricity comes from somewhere. In late 2021, the EPA announced new rules for manufacturers that increased the mileage per gallon that their fleet would have to have from 32 to 40 within the next few years. And I thought that was actually somewhat underreported and brilliant, because you can make more fuel-efficient gas vehicles today through a number of technologies that are already out there, that are on the counter already.
Yeah, no, I mean, it's a slippery slope, because it's one, it looks good, in terms of promotions or a press conference, but the reality is on the EV side, it is more complex in terms of how you get there, battery technology, where the raw materials are coming from. And that's why, this is all moving toward what I'll call a green tidal wave, but there's going to be bumps along the road. And I think also a lot of it comes down to cost, because the average consumer, if you're looking at an EV that's 15, 20,000 above a traditional automobile, it's a tough pill to swallow.
Yeah, it's not free. In other words, you are paying a premium. So I think we were looking at an ID.4 from Volkswagen, and the $20,000 premium they wanted, the salesperson kept saying, well, you're going to save money on gas. Well, I'm not going to save $20,000 in gas over a couple years. So ultimately, hence, that's where these subsidies come from. Where do you see this market, say, in 3 years from now? What is it going to look like? I know you said 3% of the cars are currently electric now. Do you see that doubling or tripling?
Look, in China, we're already double digits. Europe, we're getting there, especially with what we're seeing across on the energy prices. Look, I think we're really going to get to about 10% adoption over the next 3 to 4 years, and that goes to 20% by the end of the decade. So it's not going to 100%, but that's significant in terms of where we are today. But no doubt the laggard continues to be the U.S., and that's why regulatory, it's important, because, especially with what you see on tax credits, that's really been a big frustration of investors as well as consumers.
I see a theme here. So give me 3 companies, and it could be one of the automakers, but 3 companies that you think that are listed right now that could take advantage of this trend that you've placed out.
Well, first is Tesla. That continues to be, long time our favorite on EVs. 2 would be Rivian. I think Rivian has a lot of potential in terms of where it's moving, especially on the overall trucking market. And I'd say third is probably Ford in terms of the F-150 and where they're going. I think next year that's going to be a pivotal release. And look, the wild card is going to be VW. They're spending a significant amount, and that's probably what I'll say is the dark horse in terms of where they are in the EV race.
Yeah, and just for the record, VW is not a public company. Well, it is, but it also has Porsche and Audi as well. So a lot of these companies are sharing, if you will, all of this technology. There's much more involved in that. Gas prices, I know, have played a part in where this is, and assuming gas prices stay where they are today, I'm assuming that that would help accelerate the adoption of consumers into the EV market, correct?
Yeah, I mean, there's a break even. If you look at $3 a gallon gasoline, that's not a break even. The break even, you start to get the $4.50 per gallon. That's where that really drives the ROI. That those expenses that you're paying on for an incremental EV, you look out 3-4 years, then you could start, especially with tax credits, there's a break even. So that's why this is a huge variable in terms of gas price. That's why in Europe, that's going to be a huge move toward EVs because of what we've seen in Europe the last 6 months.
All right, I'm putting Tesla, Rivian, Ford, and VW on the list. Dan, it's good to see you, and we look forward to talking about this again. Thank you.